time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand with your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Brandy. Today we're going to be talking about the meaning of brand. What do I mean by that? Ta-da. Basically, in a sense, we assign meaning to everything, don't we, Reilly? I mean, for instance, even how I've organized things on my desk or how I set up my office space. There's meaning, there's intentionality to that, and I compartmentalize. My brain has to assign meaning to things. Yep. What's important to have it within arm's reach, what's stashed underneath in a drawer, like even just a simple thing of as I'm looking around and we're recording this podcast, I'm thinking about the topic of meaning and assigning meaning to things. We just do it as humans. That's how we survive, right?
Yeah. And that's really, to get started on this, you have to first accept that of going, okay, as humans, that's what really does make us different than your dog, is that a dog looks at a cup and it sees an object. A human looks at a cup and we start thinking, oh, what can I put in that cup? Is that for hot liquid, cold liquid?
Do I like the color of the cup? Yeah,
and there starts becoming actually preferential, all this other kind of information that we're trying to gain from it, so that then, ultimately we need to establish, on a very basis level, like, is this a threat to me, or is this something I can use that can, propel me forward or benefit me in some way? And so when you do think of how that's progressed over time with, in evolutionary biology, it's like from the threat level of what's orange and has black stripes. Is that a threat to me? Is that real? Or is that actually, a friend? And no, it's a tiger. So then we get established, okay, that's bad. That's the meaning assigned to that. And so you take that nowadays, like we are doing that, whether it's a restaurant that we like, our favorite shoe brand, or, a certain type of car model. We assign meaning to certain things based off of association or maybe who we see interacting with that certain brand.
And I think if anything, it would be more of, if you're going to talk about assigning meaning, right? You're talking about it's like contextual and preferential and up to personal preference, right? Yep. But I look at it as meaning being, think of it as a scale, like a favorite scale, right? Mm-hmm. Or if it's, whether it's 1 to 5 stars or 1 to 10, how would you rate that? What is the meaning of that? What is the value of that? Yeah. And I think that's where really the rubber hits the road when we're applying meaning in the context of branding. Yeah. And how if a brand is not declaring its meaning, then it's leaving it up to the audience to declare its meaning, and that might not be good for the brand.
Yeah, so the brand definitely needs to help guide that, because it's like when you do talk to some businesses, they go, oh, well, the quality, we use superior ingredients and the quality's there. The customer will know. They'll be able to gain they'll see the value of that. And what they are trying to say is that, the customer will find that meaningful. They'll find the meaning of that value. When in reality, yes, they will take that into consideration, but the brand does need to be there to help guide them, because each of us, what you and I, we find different things meaningful. Different people find different things meaningful. And so being able to go, okay, who is my audience? What do they find that is meaningful? Because that is of value to them.
Yeah.
And really it's like having that clarity, like we talked about in several episodes, of having a brand, having that clarity of knowing who you're talking to, and then being able to understand and go, okay, what does Joe or Sally or whoever, what do they find valuable? Because that meaning that they're going to assign to it,
what's important to them,
yeah, and that's what's going to really help them lean into the brand and accept it, but also belong to it.
Yeah, and it helps nurture the relationship that you're building with the audience, with the consumer, with your customer. The more your brand is dictating its meaning, its value, beyond just the transaction. Yeah. Right. Every business has a transaction, but the brand is the relational component of the company, and how is it framing its intrinsic value, or the things that the brand finds important. Right. It may not be in the specific product or service that the brand is offering, but there is within the brand, the brands can be declaring things that are important to it, the brand, whether it's the environment, whether it's animal cruelty, whether it is some other benevolent cause, right? Or and it may not be that. It could just be, we love this, and we know you love this. So there's something already we have in common. And that's kind of the foundation of any, even like if you think of a brand as a person in a room, and you're mingling at a party, you get to meet people, right? And 5 minutes in, you find common ground with a person. Yeah. You end up, and then you go around meeting other people in the room that you don't really have a connection with, don't have any common. Guess what? You're going to come back around to the person, that new person in the room that you already felt we have a couple things in common, whether it's motorcycles, whether it's, scuba diving, whatever it is, right? Oh, you're into that. I'm into that. And then you start having conversation about that. All the while, you get benefits from that relationship, right? In this case, it's the transaction, it's the business, it's the product or service that brand is offering. But you're already feeling like a kinship, almost like I get them, they get me. Yeah. And there's something there, especially you think about, like you said, on the human relational level. It's like that's what I think it was Andrew Carnegie who would always say, "Be interesting by being interested." And so when you're interested in someone in their life, what they're talking about, and you're asking questions and engaging with them and not just talking about yourself, you'll be that person will find you interesting because you are interested. And so the same thing goes for brands. Like the more you're interested in your audience, what they care about, what they enjoy, what they're worried about, what keeps them up at night, it's like understanding that it comes down to empathy, but also that's going to make your brand much more magnetic to those people. Right. And like you said, they may go away and then they will come back because they're going to find out, all these other, options aren't having that same connection. Right. They're not as interested, so they're not as interesting. And that's really, I think when you do look at from the brand's angle, it's like being able to establish what your audience finds meaningful will then give you clarity and guidance on how you then declare that value. Because just like you go somewhere, we have the best quality in the world, or it's ma pa owned or small town business. It's like your audience may not find that meaningful, especially if everyone else is saying that. Where it's like, okay, that's a very kind of subjective based off quality, and small town, small business, people might not care about that as much. Unless your audience is someone who does want to support that. They're very keen to go, no, I want to support the, family owned and operated. Then, that is something to put out there because they find that meaningful. Right. And, as a consumer, and this is always my gauge, I'm on the behind the curtains as in branding, but I'm also on the receiving end of branding as a consumer, and we're all consumers. Something that, for me, something that always connects, that always resonates well with me is when I'm engaging with a brand, and through small acts, they show me, or small little ways, they show me that they're more interested in me than themselves. And so when you're talking on the topic of meaning, and I'm not saying this is like the playbook for every brand to do. But in some cases for your brand, if your brand is communicating to your audience that you, the audience, the consumer, mean more than the company means to itself, meaning it might do something more sacrificial. It might not make sense profit-wise, but they're going to go out of their way to do something to either make you happy, make it right, whatever it is, right? Yeah. When those steps are taken and you feel like they didn't have to go to the lengths they did for me as the consumer, but they're silently communicating, you're more important than we are, right? Yeah. And I feel like today's day and age, we're so into corporations just about the bottom line and trying, whether it's utility companies going up, cell phone company, health insurance, everybody, car insurance, everybody's, you pay to have insurance, and one use of the insurance, they justify raising the rates. And it's almost like, because they're showing, right, that their profit margin is more important. Their board of directors is more important than their audience or their customer. Yeah. And when you see a brand that approaches it differently and conveys meaning, right? They're conveying a meaning of you're more important. That's a powerful brand tool. And I'm not saying that's right for everybody to do, because it's each brand is unique and different. Its audience is unique and different. But as a consumer, that resonates with me, because I feel like they're a company that isn't just about making a profit. Yeah. And there's that story element, right? That they're, everything's interwoven, right? A brand is, by conveying meaning, is conveying a story. It's a story. It's identity, where it positions itself, what it's passionate about, what it aspires as a company to do. Yeah. And if that is to, make sure every one of these is in the home of every America, or whether they value providing the utmost quality service beyond anybody else in town, right?
Yeah.
They're conveying a story.
Yeah.
And that has meaning to the audience.
It seems like, even in my mind, it's like Amazon's a massive example of a flywheel. And a flywheel effect is something that you put some energy and resources into and build that momentum, and then it starts peeling off its own energy and keeps going. They use it in motors and they use all kinds of things, but Amazon's business model is essentially a flywheel, because the more customers it gets, the more subscriptions for Prime, the further it can drive down prices, which then generate more customers, which then drives down prices further, and so on and so forth. And you think about even like what you were saying is like having that care, it almost is a flywheel for the business, because when someone does experience that, where they're either experiencing the care and the value in that way, where, oh wow, this brand is actually being mindful of me, and that's meaningful because you care about yourself, and just like being interested, they are interested in you, then that's going to either acquire you as a new customer or retain you as a customer. And so you'll keep coming back. And so then that kind of builds up more of that momentum of you get more of those people who care about that and they like that. And then that's going to keep kind of reproducing itself. And it's like what I mentioned before is like Seth Godin always says with brands, it's like people like us do things like this. And when you put that in the frame of a brand, whether it's Adidas or In-N-Out, you have a similarity and kinship among the audience that aligns with the brand and the principles and how it goes about conducting business. And I feel like that's really paramount for a lot of brands, just because it does envelop so much of quality, of like the need or desires or things like that the brand is recognizing these values that the audience or the ideal audience finds meaningful, and they're able to then mirror that back to them, right? They're showing they're interested, which then makes that brand much more magnetic.
Yeah.
So, based off of this, it's like when you first think about, okay, how is my audience finding that meaning? What do they find meaningful? What are they kind of starting to categorize me as a business, and being able to understand how do I get them to assign the right meaning to my brand? Because really, it's like just like brand itself, it's like the business only has so much control over it, because really it's up to the audience to then assign that, oh, this brand means X. The brand can try to really manage that and keep it going in a certain direction, but ultimately it's up to the customer. And the same thing with the meaning of it. But that's why when you do understand your audience more in depth, then you can go, okay, my audience cares about, it could be lower prices. So how do we express that? Just like, again, with Prime and Amazon, it's like people use it because it is a good deal, ultimately. It's, you're getting a great price, you get free shipping, you get great service, you are prized as the customer. You're not getting bottom of the barrel, but you're still getting great products at a great price, and you have a slew of options. And so really it comes down to, that's Amazon's position in that they're signaling out to their audience of, hey, we have plenty of options, we have great prices, and it's easy. It's convenient for you to receive, send back, make your payments, whatever. And that would be, again, opposite than a luxury brand, which would almost be polar opposite of going, no, there's scarcity in your selection, it's curated, it's a high price, but you're paying for that certain curation because that matters to that buyer of them wanting that. Yeah.
Some people are driven by value. Some people are driven by quality. And it just depends on what it is that they're shopping for. Whenever I'm looking at buying a object X, right? I will go online and I will search eBay, Amazon, whatever it is, to try to find the lowest possible price with shipping for item X. Because no matter who sends me item X, it's item X, right? Yeah. So I, therefore, am driven by value. If I'm going to go now, when I'm looking at item X, the category that item X is in, I will then make my choice not based on value pricing, but I will, as a consumer, I'll research all the different brands of item X to find out what is the one that has the highest quality, right? Longevity, problem free, what's getting the best reviews, all those things for item X.
Right.
Then once I've landed on, okay, this brand A's item X, now I've zeroed in on that. Now I'm going to I might actually find the cheapest place in town to get that. But that's just showing the two possible, for me, general buckets of meaning I'm assigning to in the same transaction, where I'm looking at, shopping, and if something that quality matters for brand X, for sure. Yeah. There's others where it's purely value driven. It doesn't matter. Give it to me for the cheap.
It's a widget.
I don't care. I don't need quality. This, whatever it is, right? Yeah, I think we are always having those filters, and I think a brand can convey its meaning through its messaging, how it's saying it, what it's saying, and even, again, its visual touch points. Yeah. Whether it's its logo, it's a business card, a billboard, or how they have product packaging done, and whatever it is that is being conveyed to the consumer, how they're doing it, that's how you steer and imply a lot of that meaning. It's more of the engagement with the brand, the engagement the brand has with the consumer, not just tactful, but visual,
right?
Other senses, right? You can have a business card for a brand, and it's got a very rough, kind of grainy texture to it on the paper stock, and it happens to be for a beach resort. Yeah. How great is that? But if you're wanting to sell glass, or or whatever it is, something that would not have a grainy, gritty feel, you want super high, smooth, just a different tactile experience. The simple act of choosing the right paper stock for your business, for a brand's business cards, because people don't think about it. They only go with the visual, but people touch a business card. Is it sturdy? Is it flimsy? Is it indestructible? Right? Yeah. You could have a watercraft brand that is using a flexible rubber or plasticine type of material, silicone material for its business cards that are waterproof, tearproof, right? And it makes sense. If you sell ski boats, why would you hand out a paper business card? Hand out something that's more memorable. People go, oh, this feels like wetsuit material. Oh, this is cool. Yeah. Like, already you're connecting and providing different meaning to simply by what paper stock you're choosing for a business card.
It's kind of like we talked about in the theater episode, I think episode 14, we talked about the theater of brand, and you have these props. You have these things that are fitting to the theme, and they're reinforcing that value, because really it's like someone who, let's say water skiing, they want to go water skiing, water sports, they love it. They love going out on the boat, on the lake. And so when you start theming things around that with all your props and your touch points as a brand, then it reinforces that, going, oh, they're speaking my language. They're interested. The brand is showing that it's interested in what this person is interested in. So the brand, therefore, is more interesting to them. And you keep reinforcing that. And it's kind of like, I was thinking about, it's like the brand, it's not supposed to explain everything in one nutshell. It's like you're leaving these little clues where, like you said, the business card, the feel of that, maybe the sign, how it looks, how it lights up, or the attire that the employees wear. It's like everything are clues that then the viewer, the audience, they're forming their meaning of your brand based off that. And just like when you go anywhere new, right? You're taking in your atmosphere, you're taking in the environment, and you're getting all these clues of, okay, is this safe? Is this, is the ground stable? Where's my exit at? You're taking in all these different clues to form your perception of what?
Are you a prepper?
No, just
goes through life looking for the emergency exits are in every building.
But that's what it's like. It reminds me of, where it's like we're so dependent on our senses, and like you said, we do default to the visual, right? Because that's our main intake of information, is our visual system. So it's like us being able to identify certain things, and we're putting together this puzzle of whether it's our environment or of the brand we're interacting with. It's like when you go to a website and it just feels off to you, and you're like, man, is this thing even legit? Like, they're selling this product, and you start kind of looking at it, you go down to the footer, and you're like, man, they don't even have an address on here. Like, this feels like
There's
a scam.
no way to contact them.
Yeah, no, and it's like red flag, and all those things that are clues, right? Where brand is the opposite of that. Of like, you want to leave great clues of someone going, oh wow, look at, I can actually talk to a human right now.
I have assurance.
Yeah, and they have a 30-day return, or it's all these things showing that, hey, you can trust us. All these like very fundamental things to doing business, showing that as a brand, and again, focusing on what actually matters to that individual.
Right. And you have to be consistent. That's the thing too with driving or steering the meaning of your brand to your audience is, we use this example, with like a fancy business card, right? Oh, that's great. And someone made that's listening to this episode might write that down. Okay, I need to find a really obscure, card and build that in. But then other things are falling short, like the brand's presence in an invoice, or how they provide receipts, or how they answer the phone, or how quickly they respond to emails. All those other things matter too, not just having a slick, fancy, on point business card, right? It's different. It's memorable. People are going to like that, because I've seen people too where they get singularly focused on one touch point of their brand, right?
A label.
Or a vinyl, or a magnetic sign to put on their vehicle, the company car, that has every physical component you could possibly have: QR codes, Instagram tags, phone number, address. And the reality is, no one is going to, in the middle of driving around, memorize all that stuff.
Right.
And so the idea that they get hyper fixed on one touch point and don't see the whole system from bookend to bookend of the brand, and making sure everything is being done, not to just stand out, because if every brand did that, you'd have it's about being consistent and being clear.
And it matters to them. And that's what we wrote about, where Walt Disney, I think we mentioned it in episode 2, or in the brand experience episode, and that was about Walt Disney. It'd say everything speaks. And so it sounds super neurotic, but he would go around, and everything to Walt in Disneyland it all speaks to the audience, to the guests while they're going through it. It's all saying something about Disney and their perception of that, which he's completely right. And it's like Disney went to the level of, a good brand is, okay, the things people see do matter. But a great brand is like even the things that people don't see matters. And that's what Disneyland, I think, has really just gone to that level of, where everything is completely thought out. They're doing things that the guest doesn't even see or interact with, but it's still there.
You'll never walk through Disneyland and see a bit of trash, a bit of gum stuck. The landscaping is immaculate. Yeah. Because every night, and a lot of people know this, but not every person knows this, that at every night, these huge strands of lights erect out of the ground, and all of their landscapers come in the middle of the night to do all the groundskeeping, to prune the flowers, to clean up leaves. They steam clean the streets and the walkways throughout the park at night, every night. Yeah. So when doors open the next morning, spanking clean streets, not a single dead flower or leaf anywhere to be found. Everything's immaculate, and and that's communicated. You go to other theme parks.
Yeah, no.
I'm not going to name names, but other theme parks in our state even. And you'll find some trash. You'll find somewhere in terror. Maybe once a week they clean stuff, but not on a level that Walt set the bar for. Yeah. And when he devised the park, when they engineered the park, when they devised how they were going to do it, when are they going to clean, right? Yeah. All of that. And it's literally a park that is running 24/7. Yeah. It's closed to the public during the at night. But at night is when there's a lot of activity happening at the park, and that's all behind the scenes to make ready for the audience the next day and to maintain the meaning of that brand and the experience of that brand that people have.
The fact that the guests who do go to Disneyland, for example,
we're back to talking about Disney all the time.
That they appreciate that, right? Yeah. The people who go there, and it's crazy because I go to Disneyland, I see guys covered in tattoos, I see young families, I see couples, I see everything. We're just like, how do all these people, how do all these people go to the same place? And actually at In-N-Out, I get that same thing too, where I see people of all walks of life going there. I'm like, it's so fascinating to me that you have these brands that are attracting this huge array of people who look different, who dress different, who just have different walks of life, and yet they're all enjoying the same thing. So to me, that's the next level, because all those people, there's a common denominator there. And I think it has to do with like the principles that these people do all appreciate what these brands are offering, what they're bringing to the table, and what it says about them, right? And the meaning that they have assigned to these brands, whether that could be similar across the board, but really it's like based off each individual, those meanings are going to be slightly skewed and subjective to that person of what they appreciate about it.
For the same reason, you and I could have, like we talk about favorites, right? So we could list our top 5 favorite bands, personal musical bands, and they'll be different.
Yeah.
There might be a few similarities in that top 5, but they're different. 5 favorite films, 5 favorite books. We all have favorites, and there's a reason, right? If you even among an audience that reads, let's say books, reads a lot of books, right? Whether it's, let's say, mysteries, right? A lot of mystery book readers out there. If you ask everyone's personal top 5 favorite mystery novels, there's going to be some that are similar that rise to the top.
Yeah.
But there's going to be ones that are off the radar, that are unusual, that are unique.
Yeah.
And is any one mystery reader wrong in their top 5? No.
Yeah.
It is subjective. It's personal. It's based on personal preferences and framework that the person has. And that's something we also brought in. Like, I think with the audience, what are their past experiences? Right. What is their framework by which they are measuring? What are what metrics are they assigning that meaning to your brand?
Mm-hmm.
And it might be having past experiences, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like coming into a bad relationship where you have if you have someone, you enter a new relationship with someone and they have a lot of baggage from previous toxic relationships. You have a brand consumer. What is their previous brand experiences? If they're looking for an auto shop because they've had bad experiences with the previous auto shops, and they're looking to you going, I have a need. Are you the right fit? They're coming in with a different framework. They're guarded. They're skeptical. They're questioning the validity of your choices and what you say, and being mindful of that.
Yeah. Well, that even happens to us. Like, we'll get people who come to us, businesses, and they'll be like, well, how do I know that you guys will, with the brand stuff and brand creation and the amount of logos? And I can go right to the point with them and be like, has a designer or a web designer, whoever, screwed you over in the past? And every single time I'm right, where they've been burned by some, maybe designer who's at home doing their thing, and then they just disappear and ghost the client or something like that. Or
big agency that talked a lot, had a big talk, but just did not deliver.
Yeah, and that happens quite a bit too.
That's more, I think, probably more the case in our industry than not. There's a lot of people talking big games, but they just don't really deliver when it counts.
And a lot of it is like we always make fun of it, like the marketees and the smoke and mirrors of it, where it's just like, no, let's actually just focus on the business objective of it, and really, because that's really why the clients are coming to us and being interested in them growing as a business and what their perhaps problems are or their aspirations of what they're trying to do with their business. I want to help them succeed. And so that being the baseline, then it's like, okay, now let's talk and help them understand where it's like, no, we're not the ones that we're being interested in. We're interested in you. And so even with some of these clients, then I have to kind of walk them through kind of therapy of it, of like, hey, like, there's no trick here. Like, I'm not hoodwinking you. Like, I'm trying to help you with your business. And so it's funny to even see that in the B2B realm, like what we are, business services, but I do get that in the consumer space.
Yeah, years ago when I was freelancing full time, as a brand designer, and I got asked that all the time, was people be like, well, do you guarantee your work, right? What if I don't like the logo at the end, right? And I used to always say that I ask a lot of questions on the front end, right, to field out a lot of factors that go into the design route.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason on that first pass, if I am way off mark and they don't like a thing, the responsibility is on me. I wasn't asking the right questions as a designer. I wasn't asking enough about who they're trying to reach or what they're trying to do or about them in the business, and there was a miscommunication. So a lot of times one of those things of like, look, if that's the case, I'll go back and don't worry about we'll get it right, because I am assuming that unless the client changed some business plan model halfway through and now they're going in a different direction. But usually a lot of that is when they're having to lean on us for us to provide that strategy and for us to provide here's the course, right? Set.
This is where it's
and then allowing us to do that and not running. So then there really is no risk, because if we're doing our jobs right, we're devising and intentionally building a brand that is going to be successful right?
Yeah.
And that's just what we do. But it's understandable. A lot of people, like in this case, we're talking about the brand industry and with agencies and whatnot. That there's a lot of people burned experiences.
Yeah,
and
that
so
can
a great
be
point to bring
important
up.
to the audience of like de-risking the transaction. If someone's buying a car or something, it's like, okay, well, what's you have the warranty, you have all these things that come with it. That's de-risking and mitigating the risk to make them feel better about it. And that's really, any purchase has that. Is that meaningful to your audience? You're not going to do that at like a restaurant or something where it's like, okay, if it's bad, they'll send it back. That's fine. And you'll make it right. But you don't have to be like, okay, there's a 30-day window, a guarantee.
Yeah. Enjoy your meal or your money back. It's like, and there's, there's probably there's probably some restaurants out there doing that. But you know what immediately you're conveying is you deal with more people that want their money back, that aren't satisfied. So because you're already providing me on the front end the solution to a problem that I'm hoping I'm not going to have.
Yep.
So if anything, sometimes those conventions to convey assurance actually backfire.
Yeah, no, totally. And so I think, overall with this, it's like meaning, we don't derive meaning, we assign it as humans. And I think that's really the core here, is that a lot of businesses, sometimes they just rely too much. It's almost like Field of Dreams, where they're like, okay, if we build it, they'll come. If we build this and it's going to be awesome. Like, sure, you might have a little, flash in the pan right at the beginning, and it's going to wither away. But that movie, Dreams, is in the title for a reason. And like it is a dream that
Field of
you
reality.
just do something right. Yeah. And you just, you do 100% quality, your ingredients are better. It's like, okay, that matters to a certain point. It's a great foundation for the business. But beyond that, the meaning that they're going to assign to that, what is that going to be? Because just like Scott was saying, is like, we can have different preferences. Someone might not think your food's all that great, or they might not think the quality you use on your clothes or whatever it could be is like, isn't the quality that they think is top. Because it's subjective.
Yeah.
And so then that meaning that's being assigned to you is like, how do you help guide that as a brand? What does it mean to your ideal audience, and how do you be more interested in them?
Even whether it's a local winery that says, hey, join our wine club, be part of the in crowd. And it's like, well, what are you deeming as the in crowd?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Like, and already they're making me feel they're trying to be cool and kind of like, oh, hey, join us because those are members. We're the in crowd, right? And it's kind of like, well, then what you're addressing me as the passerby that I'm not. That I'm not in the in crowd. I'm not popular.
No,
I'm not part of the in, group. And so again, it's like you just gotta do it in a way that humble and tasteful and making sure that in one thing of trying to create meaning and boast that you're not implying something else. Because there's a lot. I've seen so many branding messagings that. Well, it depends on how you frame that, what your statement is. And it might mean one thing, but it might mean implied another thing as well.
Yeah.
And that's where you get down to the personal preferences of the viewer. One consumer might see that as an upswing. The other one might feel that as a deficit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's kind of not doing it in trickery, right? Not doing it to try to trick someone of, be part of the in crowd. But it's like, no, okay, you want to signal to the people who do appreciate that, who appreciate premium, but you also have to, again, leave other clues for them to put that together, right?
Yeah.
It's like maybe there's an application to join. You don't just walk in and join the membership, or maybe there's a more difficult way. There's a little more friction to get there, because if it is an in crowd, it shouldn't be that I can just sign up for it. There needs to be a little more hurdles involved.
You're implying that exclusivity,
right,
of an in-crowd experience because of how you're navigating the consumer to get to that point, right? Then they really feel that. A hypothetical would be like, have the person that wants to join the wine club fill out an application. Like almost like, are they good enough for it? And that just even that implication might be in this one particular instance for this brand X, that might actually work in their favor to create that sense of our wine club is very exclusive, right? Yeah. So you're going to have to go through a couple hoops to even get approved to join. Well, for that brand, if they're wanting super exclusive, super, luxurious, right? Yeah. A boastful thing that if you're a wine club member of Winery X, that might be an appropriate thing. Now, if 10 wineries in the area are all doing the same thing,
yeah, then it's like,
again, you have to make sure that what you're doing too is part of your brand's meaning is slightly distinctive
Right.
from everybody else.
Yeah.
You got to know yourself. You got to know your brand. You got to know your audience, and then you'll be able to know what is meaningful to them and how to convey that meaning of my brand appropriately to them.
Yeah. You're not only going to become more valuable, but you'll become more relevant because you actually you're going straight to the heart of it. What actually matters to customer or guest or client X, right? What truly matters to them? And that is then what's meaningful, and that's what's of value and the most relevant to them. And guess who they'll choose? Are they going to choose something that's not relevant to them, or are they going to choose the most relevant answer to their issue or their aspiration that is the most valuable? And that's really going to cut through it all.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to put a pin in it there. Thank you for tuning in on this episode of Brandy. Check out the book if you haven't. It's available on Amazon if you want to go and skip across a couple more topics. And we look forward to having another cocktail with you on our next round.
Cheers.